The screen flare from the broken streetlight cast jagged shadows over the electric gate that guarded my little slice of nowhere. That night, it wasn't just the gate that was shut. Everything else was about to slam down on me, hard and fast. You know, most folks don't expect their peace to snap like a cheap string. But when the Karen sisters stepped up at the edge of my driveway and slammed their bodies against my electric gate, I knew everything was about to get ugly. The gate shuddered under their weight, a harsh metallic groan slicing through the quiet. The air smelled faintly of gasoline. Someone nearby had been busy. Their voices cut through the night like nails on a chalkboard. "Move it, old man," the first Karen barked, eyes glittering with smug satisfaction. She was the kind of woman who thought the world owed her a favor just for showing up. Her sister mirrored her stance, equally fierce, like two textbook bullies trained for this moment. They were standing there, blocking my only way out, two shadows in the moonlight daring me to step up. I'm 55, lived in this small town long enough to know trouble when it knocks. But that night, they came with more than just anger. They came wielding threats draped in entitlement, ready to suffocate any hope I had of peace. "You think you own this neighborhood? Not today," the second Karen sneered, her voice thick with meaning. Funny thing, at that moment, I felt every muscle tighten. Suddenly, all the frustration I've bottled up for years came flooding back. I could taste it bitter on my tongue. While the cold metal of the gate pressed against my palms, something inside me snapped. I snapped back, voice rough and low. "This is private property. Back off." The words landed like a punch, but so did the shockwave of my own doubt. I hadn't just been fighting the gate or the sisters. I was fighting ghosts of losses, of failed promises, and the creeping loneliness that settled in my chest every night. But let me back up a little. You gotta know how it all started. It wasn't always this hostile. I've been a good neighbor, the one who mows lawns, keeps an eye on the kids when the parents are out late. Yet, something shifted when the Karen sisters moved in just a few streets down. At first, it was little things. Loud parties, complaints about my old truck parking on the curb, the usual noise. But soon, it escalated. They rallied the homeowner association behind their campaign of control. Letters, complaints, unofficial inspections, all targeted at me. Funny how power works in small towns. You mess with the right people, and suddenly the whole block thinks you're the villain. I learned that the hard way. That night at the gate wasn't just random. It was the culmination of weeks of tension, a trap waiting to snap shut. The metallic scent of the gate mixed with the faint smell of burnt rubber from an engine idling too close. Somewhere, a dog barked anxiously. The whole place felt taut, like a wire about to snap. I remember trying to keep my cool, trying to reason. "Let's talk this out," I said, but the Karens just laughed. "Talk? That's cute. We're here to stop you, not chat." They pushed harder, and something inside me broke loose. Anger, frustration, and maybe just a hint of fear. I screamed back, words sharp as broken glass. Then, amid the chaos, something caught my eye. The flicker of a flashlight from down the street, someone watching. I couldn't tell who, but it felt off. Like I wasn't alone, but not in a way that made me safer. The gate sparked, its controls overwhelmed by the physical assault. The metal groaned like a beast under attack. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my ears. It was more than just a gate being blocked. It was my life, my peace, being barricaded by people who saw me as their enemy. How far would they go? Was this just about a gate, or was it about breaking me? Have you ever stood your ground and felt every part of you shake like a leaf? I didn't know then how deep this fight would go. But one thing was clear. I wasn't just going to walk away. That night shattered more than my gate. It cracked open old wounds I thought were long sealed. Here's what they didn't know. I've been here before. I've taken hits no one sees, lost things no one talks about. And sometimes, the only way forward is through the fire. And this fire was just getting started. You ever felt like the world just stopped turning? Like everything you relied on suddenly flipped? Well, this was my moment. The door behind the gate creaked as I turned towards it, cold sweat running down my back. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The gate's cold metal wasn't the only thing rattled that night. As the Karen sisters stood there, blocking my way, the weight of more than just their bodies pressed down on me. You ever get that feeling like the whole world's eyes are staring at you, waiting for you to break? That's exactly what I felt. Let me tell you what happened next. I tried to hold my ground, but my hands were shaking. It wasn't just the fear of being locked in. It was the way those two looked at me, like I was some sort of trespasser in my own life. "You don't belong here," one whispered, so close her breath brushed my cheek, carrying the sharp scent of cheap perfume mixed with cigarette smoke. I backed up slowly, my boots crunching on the gravel, heart pounding so loud I swore the neighbors could hear it. Suddenly, the heavier Karen reached out and shoved me with a force that sent me sprawling onto the cold concrete. I hit the ground hard. The shock of the fall sent a sharp pain through my ribs. "Get up, old man," she spat, stepping closer, "or you're done here." Laughter bubbled up from the other neighbors gathered by the alleyway. I recognized a few faces, some always eager to watch a showdown, others caught up in the gossip swirling like wildfire around the block. The smell of damp leaves mixed with the faint diesel from a truck idling nearby. I tasted bitterness and adrenaline, and something else. A sour twist of humiliation twisting in my gut. I got up, wincing. "Fine," I said, voice gravelly and low. "You want to fight? Come and get it." That's when the real trouble began. Word got around fast. By morning, the homeowner association's group chat exploded with messages about the old man's inappropriate behavior and disturbing the peace. The Karen sisters made sure every complaint was amplified, twisted, and sent up the chain. Then came the meeting, the one I knew would be the real battlefield. I stepped into the cramped community hall, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm. My palms sweated on the worn wooden table as I saw the crowd. Neighbors I'd once called friends, now with eyes filled with suspicion. Some, even with thin smiles, betraying their loyalty to the Karens. "Let's get started," the HOA leader snapped, eyes cold as steel. "We're here because some disturbing incidents threaten the peace of our community." I knew who they meant. The Karens sat side by side, their faces smug. One of them raised that fake innocent look, but in their eyes, I saw the blade behind the smile. "You've disturbed more than the peace," the senior Karen accused. "Your gate's been a hazard, your presence unsettling. We all deserve better." The room murmured agreement. I could practically feel the walls closing in. I tried to explain, voice cracking under the weight of their judgment. "I'm just defending my home," I said. "Isn't that what any of us would do?" But their lines were rehearsed. "You're a threat, not a neighbor," came the reply. "We have to protect our community." The verdict was clear before votes were cast. Later, I stood outside, the chilly wind biting through my jacket. The gate, my gate, now felt like a prison door closed tight. And that's when I met him, the homeowner association's treasurer. Quiet guy, always had that calculating look. He approached slowly, eyes glinting like he was weighing me up. "You had a rough meeting," he said, voice low. I didn't know if he was friend or foe. "You're not the only one who's been pushed around," he added, glancing over his shoulder. "Sometimes the rules aren't what they seem." What did he mean? I couldn't tell if it was a warning or an invitation. That night, the first seed of doubt took root. Was the enemy really who I thought? Or were there deeper currents beneath the surface? You ever been caught between friends and foes, unsure which way to turn? I could feel the taste of betrayal lurking just beyond the facade of the meeting. And believe me, this was only the start, just when I thought I had a handle on the fight. The stakes were about to get a lot higher. What would you do if the people supposed to have your back were the ones holding the knife? The night crept in, darker than before, dripping with secrets waiting to unravel. And me? I was sitting on a powder keg, waiting for the spark. But here's what she didn't know. I wasn't planning to go down without a fight. The gate's cold metal wasn't the only thing rattled that night. As the Karen sisters stood there, blocking my way, the weight of more than just their bodies pressed down on me. You ever get that feeling like the whole world's eyes are staring at you, waiting for you to break? That's exactly what I felt. Let me tell you what happened next. I tried to hold my ground, but my hands were shaking. It wasn't just the fear of being locked in. It was the way those two looked at me, like I was some sort of trespasser in my own life. "You don't belong here," one whispered, so close her breath brushed my cheek, carrying the sharp scent of cheap perfume mixed with cigarette smoke. I backed up slowly, my boots crunching on the gravel, heart pounding so loud I swore the neighbors could hear it. Suddenly, the heavier Karen reached out and shoved me with a force that sent me sprawling onto the cold concrete. I hit the ground hard. The shock of the fall sent a sharp pain through my ribs. "Get up, old man," she spat, stepping closer, "or you're done here." Laughter bubbled up from the other neighbors gathered by the alleyway. I recognized a few faces, some always eager to watch a showdown, others caught up in the gossip swirling like wildfire around the block. The smell of damp leaves mixed with the faint diesel from a truck idling nearby. I tasted bitterness and adrenaline and something else, a sour twist of humiliation twisting in my gut. I got up, wincing. "Fine," I said, voice gravelly and low. "You want to fight? Come and get it." That's when the real trouble began. Word got around fast. By morning, the homeowner association's group chat exploded with messages about the old man's inappropriate behavior and disturbing the peace. The Karen sisters made sure every complaint was amplified, twisted, and sent up the chain. Then came the meeting, the one I knew would be the real battlefield. I stepped into the cramped community hall, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm. My palms sweated on the worn wooden table as I saw the crowd, neighbors I'd once called friends, now with eyes filled with suspicion. Some, even with thin smiles, betraying their loyalty to the Karens. "Let's get started," the HOA leader snapped, eyes cold as steel. "We're here because some disturbing incidents threaten the peace of our community." I knew who they meant. The Karens sat side by side, their faces smug. One of them raised that fake innocent look, but in their eyes, I saw the blade behind the smile. "You've disturbed more than the peace," the senior Karen accused. "Your gate's been a hazard, your presence unsettling. We all deserve better." The room murmured agreement. I could practically feel the walls closing in. I tried to explain, voice cracking under the weight of their judgment. "I'm just defending my home," I said. "Isn't that what any of us would do?" But their lines were rehearsed. "You're a threat, not a neighbor," came the reply. "We have to protect our community." The verdict was clear before votes were cast. Later, I stood outside, the chilly wind biting through my jacket. The gate, my gate, now felt like a prison door closed tight. And that's when I met him, the homeowner association's treasurer. Quiet guy, always had that calculating look. He approached slowly, eyes glinting like he was weighing me up. "You had a rough meeting," he said, voice low. I didn't know if he was friend or foe. "You're not the only one who's been pushed around," he added, glancing over his shoulder. "Sometimes the rules aren't what they seem." What did he mean? I couldn't tell if it was a warning or an invitation. That night, the first seed of doubt took root. Was the enemy really who I thought? Or were there deeper currents beneath the surface? You ever been caught between friends and foes, unsure which way to turn? I could feel the taste of betrayal lurking just beyond the facade of the meeting. And believe me, this was only the start. Just when I thought I had a handle on the fight, the stakes were about to get a lot higher. What would you do if the people supposed to have your back were the ones holding the knife? The night crept in, darker than before, dripping with secrets waiting to unravel. And me, I was sitting on a powder keg, waiting for the spark. But here's what she didn't know. I wasn't planning to go down without a fight. The room smelled stale, a mix of old coffee and mounting tension that thickened the air at the homeowner association meeting. I could hear the hum of whispers slicing through the silence, every eye fixated on me like I was some kind of outlaw. Funny thing is, this used to be the place where neighbors shared stories and birthday cakes. Now it felt more like a courtroom, and I was on trial. "Your gate's the problem," the senior Karen stated, voice ice sharp, standing like she owned the place. "It's a hazard. It's disturbing our peace. And frankly, it's you we're worried about." I stood, the worn wood of the chair creaking under me. "It's my property," I said, trying to keep the shake out of my voice. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone." "Oh, it's about more than gates," one neighbor muttered, shifting uneasily. The gossip was poison here. But just as I was about to respond, something unexpected happened. The treasurer, that quiet, calculating man, raised his hand, breaking the string of accusations. "Let's look at the facts," he said, pulling out some papers. "There's a contractor linked to this whole mess, hired by the HOA under suspicious circumstances." The room stiffened. A flicker of hope lit me up, but then came that sinking feeling. Those papers were just the start of a story darker than I imagined. The contractor wasn't just there to fix gates or trim bushes. He was part of a scheme, as the treasurer hinted. Something about double billing, hidden kickbacks, the kind of corruption small towns don't talk about out loud. But here's the kicker. Halfway through the reveal, the treasurer's voice faltered, and his eyes darted nervously around the room. The Karens exchanged quick glances, smirking as if this was all just a game. Right there, the tide shifted. I realized I couldn't trust him fully. His motive? Unclear. Was he a whistleblower or just another player in the game? The meeting spiraled. Accusations flew like sparks. Every attempt I made to expose the truth was met with resistance, half-truths, and cleverly hidden diversions. I caught a glimpse of a neighbor, one I'd always thought was on my side, glancing away, avoiding my eyes. Betrayal's sting was real and fresh. Outside, the evening air was thick with the smell of rain and burning leaves. I could still hear the sharp words echoing in my head, swirling like a storm that wasn't about to pass. And then came the unthinkable. The HOA voted to restrict my use of the gate until further notice. I stood frozen, feeling the cold wind bite through my jacket. It wasn't just about the gate anymore. It was about control, about stripping away the small freedoms left to me. There, under the flickering street lamp, I felt the weight of it all. Humiliation, isolation, and frustration crushing my chest. What do you do when the rules are rigged? When the very people supposed to protect you become your oppressors? You ever felt completely powerless in your own home? That night, I sat alone, letting the cold seep through my bones. The treasurer's last words echoed in my mind. Sometimes the rules aren't what they seem. Was this fight just about property? Or was it about something deeper? What I didn't expect was that the richest truths would come wrapped in shadows, hidden behind friendly faces. That's when I knew, to stand a chance, I'd have to dig deeper, find allies in the most unlikely places, and face the scars I've kept buried for too long. The game had changed, and I wasn't ready to fold just yet. But the path ahead? It was darker than any gate could ever be. And what would you do if the ground beneath you shifted without warning? I didn't have an answer then, but I was about to find out, whether I liked it or not. The air was thick with that electric buzz you get before a storm really breaks. I kept replaying that meeting in my head, papers laid bare, whispered secrets, cold stares. The gate, my bloody gate, felt more like a symbol of every brick wall thrown in my face. Funny thing is, sometimes the people you think you can count on turn out to be the ones who push you over the edge. I wasn't just fighting the Karen sisters anymore. I was staring down the whole homeowner association, a bureaucracy that had twisted a neighborhood into a battleground. And right in the middle was the treasurer. Quiet, calculating, his loyalty a mystery. That night, I caught him sneaking a look at me from across the street, lips curling like he was about to say something. Instead, he slipped me a folded note when no one was watching. My heart hammered as I took it, crude handwriting on shaky paper. Watch the contractor, not who you think. That was all, no signature. It felt like a lifeline tossed in a sea of uncertainty. I wasn't sure if it was a warning or a setup, but something told me the contractor was a bigger piece of this puzzle than anyone let on. You know that feeling when every step forward feels like walking blindfolded on a tightrope? I decided to act. Next morning, with the note burning a hole in my pocket, I went over to the business where the contractor supposedly worked. The place was a rundown shack with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign that buzzed in the thick morning air. The smell of motor oil and stale coffee hit me like a punch. Inside, I found the contractor, a slick-faced guy who smiled too easy and had eyes that darted like a trapped rat. I asked questions, trying to stay calm, but the answers came in half-lies and vague promises. "You've got the wrong guy," he said, voice oily. "Just doing my job." But I caught it. The little slip when he mentioned a different address and the glimpse of a receipt on his desk, signed by someone I'd seen at those meetings. That's when I knew. There was a whole web of deception woven through this town, and I was stuck in the middle. Back home, the gate stood silent, but the pressure felt like it was building inside me. I called a few neighbors I trusted, sharing what I'd found. Some nodded, wary, others dismissed it as conspiracy. The town had been split between those who feared standing up and those too proud to back down. Funny thing is, that's when the real isolation set in. It's one thing to fight enemies in the open, but to feel alone in your own backyard, that cuts deep. My fingers brushed the cold metal of my gate, the rough texture grounding me. I clenched the note tight and breathed in the crisp fall air mixed with the smell of damp earth. I felt old wounds tingle, wounds I thought had healed. I'd been pushed before, by people, by fate, by loss. But here's what I learned. Sometimes old scars remind you you're still alive, still fighting. What's the price of standing your ground when the world's against you? Have you ever stared into the abyss and dared it to blink first? That night, I barely slept, mind racing with plans, possibilities, and doubts. There was no easy way out, no simple victory, only the long haul ahead. And I was ready to walk it, even if it meant facing the darkness alone. Funny thing is, sometimes the truth doesn't shout, it whispers. And I was just starting to listen. The next morning, the neighborhood wore its usual quiet mask, but beneath that, the tension was a live wire buzzing under the surface. I felt the weight of every eye on me as I stepped out. My gate, still silent, stood like a silent sentinel, dared to be crossed. I had to keep moving. The treasurer's note burned inside my jacket, a reminder that more was at stake than just a broken gate. I decided to confront the contractor again, this time with some backup. I called my old friend Frank, a neighbor whose loyalty never wavered, the kind of guy who'd stand in the way of a freight train if you asked. Frank and I pulled up near the contractor's place as the dawn cracked. The flickering neon buzzed, casting harsh light on peeling paint and broken windows. We stepped inside, the smell of oil and stale cigarettes thick. The contractor was there, smiling, but his eyes sharp, wary. "It's back so soon?" he said, voice slick. I didn't waste breath. "You've been cooking the books, haven't you? Double billing, kickbacks, we know." He laughed, bitter and short. "You got no proof." But Frank wasn't letting up. He pulled out his phone, fingers shaking just enough to make the scene real. "We'll see about that." Suddenly, the contractor's face twisted, and before I could react, Frank shoved him. A scuffle broke out, metal ringing against metal as tools fell to the floor. "You think you're above the law?" the contractor snarled. The noise drew neighbors outside, a gathering crowd with mixed faces, curious, hostile, some just wanting a good show. I felt heat rise in me. This fight wasn't just mine anymore. But this was only round 2. Back home, the pressure hit me like a freight train. The homeowner association sent notices, threats this time, demanding I remove the gate entirely or face fines. I stared at the paper, cold ink biting into my skin. The message was clear: surrender or be crushed. Funny thing is, I felt the weight of every broken promise I'd swallowed, every inch of pride I'd refused to give up, settling in my bones. This wasn't about gates or fines. It was about control, power play, the slow chokehold of a system built to keep people like me quiet and small. You ever been cornered, watching the walls close in, knowing the fight ahead is brutal? I sat in my chair late that night, the creak of the floorboards the only sound. I thought about the treasurer's warning, the contractor's lies, the neighbors watching and whispering. Then it hit me. The real weapon wasn't just overgrown lawns or broken gates. It was the silence, the isolation. And I wasn't about to be silent. I called the treasurer, fingers tapping nervously on the receiver. When he picked up, his voice was calm but distant. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" he asked with a hint of caution. "About how deep this goes, about who's really pulling the strings." There was a pause, then he agreed. It felt like stepping onto a thin ice sheet, dangerous, uncertain, but necessary. What would you do if the ground beneath you shifted every time you took a step? Have you ever made a call that could change everything, but could just as easily shatter trust beyond repair? Because I did. And once you cross that line, there's no turning back. That night, I didn't just lose sleep. I lost the comfort of certainty and found something far scarier. The truth. The street lamp flickered outside like it was signaling the chaos to come. I sat in my worn-out chair, clutching the crumpled note the treasurer had slipped me days ago. That damn note had become my lifeline and my curse. The treasurer called me late that afternoon. His voice was tight, careful. "I've found something," he said. "But it's bigger than we thought. The contractors front for something else. Fraudulent insurance claims, money laundering, whole thing's rotting from the inside." I could feel the weight of the silence on the line before he added, "This goes beyond the Karen sisters or the gate. We're dealing with a network that's been swallowing our town." My mind was spinning. This wasn't just about petty neighborhood politics anymore. This was a full-blown corruption scheme, and I was smack in the middle of it. But here's where it got ugly. That same evening, the treasurer called off our meeting, said he'd been warned. I could almost hear the tension in his voice, the hint of fear. And then the harassing calls began. Anonymous numbers, static-laced threats. "You think you're safe? Think again." My home, once a sanctuary, felt like a fortress under siege. The gate I fought so hard to protect suddenly seemed like the smallest piece of this nightmare. Funny thing I didn't expect. Fear would fuel me. The cold sweat that slicked my palms became the fire I needed to fight back. The community had turned against me, whispers flooding the streets whenever I stepped out. Doors closed, eyes averted. The Karens poured gasoline on the fire, telling tales of an unstable neighbor. And just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, the treasurer showed up unannounced at my door. He looked beaten, tired, but determined. "We don't just fight this alone," he said. "We need a plan." Together, we devised a move that wasn't about rules or lawsuits. It was about exposing the rot by turning the system's own greed against itself. It was risky, dangerous, but I knew the alternative was worse. What would you risk to bring down a machine that's swallowing your life? Have you ever felt the weight of a fight that's bigger than yourself? Our plan hinged on baiting the contractor, luring him into a trap using his own greed. We planted false documents, a fake project with hefty payouts designed to catch him red-handed. That night, I sat by the gate, the air thick with autumn chill and the electric hum of the locked barriers, waiting. Every creak of the old wooden fence made my heart jump. Then, just past midnight, headlights sliced through the darkness. The contractor showed up, eyes darting nervously, checking over his shoulder. He took the bait. What happened next would change everything. The contractor was caught red-handed by hidden cameras the treasurer had set up with his contacts, proof that could bring down the whole corrupt network. But the victory wasn't mine alone. It came with a price. Because when the truth hit the community, the Karens fought back with everything they had, spreading rumors, turning neighbors against the treasurer and me. The gate was still locked tight, and the fight was far from over. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark, a chance, and a reckoning on the horizon. Stick around, because what came next? Well, it shook this town to its core. The dawn crept over the town, washing the streets in pale light. But the heaviness from the night before didn't lift. In fact, it felt heavier, like the sky was about to fall. The contractor's arrest shook the neighborhood. Cameras flashed, neighbors whispered. But the victory? It wasn't what I imagined. The homeowner association retaliated fast. The Karens spun lies, turning neighbors' hearts cold. The treasurer branded a traitor. Friends I thought I had vanished into thin air. I lost more than just control of the gate that day. I lost trust. Late that afternoon, the treasurer crossed my threshold, looking drained but resolute. "They're coming for you next," he muttered, voice low. I nodded, had already seen it in the cold stares around town. Then came the toughest choice. Fight a battle that would cost me everything. Or walk away, swallow my pride. Funny thing, standing there, staring at that gate, I saw not just a barrier, but a symbol. Not just of a neighborhood's petty power plays, but of my own stubbornness, my fear of letting go. I made my move. At the next HOA meeting, I didn't come armed with papers or demands. I came with something sharper, the truth, dressed in tough honesty and raw emotion. I told them what I'd learned, about corruption, lies, betrayal. But more than that, I told them about being human. About fear, loss, and the fight to keep pieces of yourself intact. I watched the faces change. Some softened, others hardened. I stepped down from the fight for control of the gate, but gained something no power could take away. Respect. And peace. The Karens lost their grip, their influence waning as resistance grew. The treasurer, once a shadow, found allies and started to rebuild trust. As for me, I still feel the aches, the scars. But I'm stronger, wiser, and free. I looked at the gate one last time before it was quietly restored. A simple swing gate now, manual and unassuming. No locks, no barriers. Just a reminder that sometimes the real victory lies in knowing when to open a door. You ever had to choose between holding on and letting go? That choice, it's the hardest fight of all. And if this story hit close to home, hit that like button. Stick around. Karenology's got more where that came from. But for now, I'll leave you with this. I warned you, Karen. That'll be your mistake. And believe me, some things, they don't burn. They just smolder, waiting for the right moment to ignite. And that moment, it's coming.